Thank you, and thank you for having me. And I can only talk about a fraction of the things we do, but I'm around here until Thursday to answer all questions you might have about animal communication and birdsong in particular. So let's go in birds. Birds are very vocal. My first take-home message. Um, and they're part of many of the soundscapes we study. What I want to talk about today specifically is a group of birds called songbirds, and that's about half of the currently existing species are songbirds, and they're called songbirds for a reason, capital song there, and that is because they produce these sort of vocalizations. And hearing this, if you, like me, grew up, let's say in Europe, North America, Northern Asian, Northern temperate zones, this probably signifies spring to you, and already gives us a clue about context specificity of song. If you're trained ornithologist or keen naturalist, you also hear this is a nightingale, a male nightingale singing here. And if you're a biologist like me, or you read a lot about biology, then you also know this is a mating signal and has two main functions. One is to expel other individuals from a territory or defend a resource by sound, just like mammals really mark the territory with smell, so urine, olfactory cues. Birds occupy a territory with sound. So as far as you can hear it, this is mine. In this case, this blackcap is singing. I'm an adult blackcap male. This is my territory, and I'm looking for a mate. And this is the second main function of birdsong: is attracting an individual of the opposite sex to start breeding. And in song, really, I've been studying in a Darwinian framework because these sex roles fit absolutely with what Darwin has been defined for sexual signaling, and as we see here for males, sexual selection depends not on a struggle for existence, but on a struggle between the males for the possession of the females. The result is not death to the unsuccessful competitor, but few or no offspring. And this is the fitness Darwin is always talking about, and that's so often misquoted. So survival of the fittest doesn't mean you become very, very old and you're very, very fit, but it means you, the point in your life when you die, have produced a lot of offspring. You had a lot of biological fitness. And anything you do to achieve that is probably positively selected. And Darwin has also been very clear on about female roles, and he's actually been, apart from having had a lot of other really good ideas, really ahead of his time with this one too, because he's giving females an active role here. He says female birds, by selecting during thousands of generations the most melodious or beautiful males, might produce the marked effect. So he's speaking about the power of sexual selection by mate selection here. And this is a very active role for females, really very far removed from what a role of a female in Victorian times was when choosing a husband. And in his framework, birdsong has been studied as a male trait. In fact, part of the original definition of birdsong is that it is a male behavior. Here a quote from a really good book, maybe the best sort of textbook on birdsong. Birdsong are the long, complex vocalization produced by males in the breeding season. Yeah, so it's the link with the reproductive season. And it sort of sets song apart from all the other vocalizations. So birds are very vocal, but song, these long, complex, special vocalizations, they are for the breeding season. So this is from the edition from 95. Things are gradually changing with incoming data from other sort of unusual non-model species, so to speak. And in the second edition, the authors have changed that definition and added this extra information saying there are innumerable exceptions. In the tropics, it is common for females to sing as well as males. So there's a shift going on. And why is this shift going on? This is because we are realizing that there have been a lot of biases in birdsong research, and they've mostly been driven by historical origin of this research. And almost all the pioneering work on birdsong research was conducted in Europe and in North America for decades. Looking at avian biodiversity across the globe, this is far removed from the areas where we have the highest species richness. That is the tropics and the subtropics. And not only are there many, many more bird species in these areas, so there's a heat map, something that's very, very red has a lot of species, something that's light blue has very, very few species. It's also that this area has only a very, very high percentage of birds there are from a most recent radiation, so they're very, very recent species. The diversity as well as the probably ancestral species are in other areas. So we think now that Australasia is the area where the modern songbirds originated about 60 million years ago. And if we go to these areas, especially now to Australasia, we see that there's male and female song. And there is, so I'll show this here. Here's a duetic species, the Australian magpies. And I think you can't even hear it's two birds, could you or not? I colored the contribution of the male and the female to a duet. And that's a typical property of duets. They're often so coordinated and so well aligned that you can't even hear it's two birds singing. It's such a temporal precision also in what they are singing. And then we have other examples here. This is the superb fairy wren showing a pronounced sexual dimorphism in plumage, but not in song. So this is the animation, unfortunately, it doesn't work. We tried in the break. But the male and the female have very, very similar song. And both can be heard and seen singing on different occasions. So, no, it's not frozen. This is known, these are studied, and they are actually throughout the previous century, but also now, repeated attempt to draw attention to a female song. Here in a very inconspicuous way, this is a long monography, really great paper out of the 40s, documented an awful lot of species with female song. This is another really, the other book in birdsong. So this is an edited volume. We all have it on our bookshelves. Everybody who has a name or a research theme in birdsong has been publishing in this, either this or the next edition. And there was a whole chapter by Kreutzmann, who in the 90s was a very influential person in birdsong. He was actually, just calling that chapter Study of Bird Sounds in the Neotropics, Urgency and Opportunity. But all these calling for action or reporting of female song didn't really change the depiction of birdsong and birds, in books, but also many articles up until maybe 10 years ago. You can grab an article and say, song is whatever males do in the breeding season. And reacting to an otherwise really brilliant article, me and two other researchers that study female birdsong published this commentary where we just said, so what's going on? Why is nobody hearing these females singing? And while we're at it, so these two are in Australia, I was sitting in Europe, and we kept on mailing and overnight producing new drafts. And we were integrating information from a new molecular phylogeny that said that really the origin in Australia was now for sure. And we added to this paper not only, a call to look more at female songbirds, but we also were sort of trying to be a bit provocative using these molecular data to suggest that given the probable Australasian origin of Australian passerines, so these are the songbirds, the true songbirds, and the prevalence of female song in Australian birds, song in both sexes could be the ancestral condition. Boom! So we thought a storm would break loose because we just made that suggestion because it wasn't that crazy, because we had just found out, or colleagues had working on molecular data, that there was the origin of songbirds, And all these species there have male and female song. So we thought it's something someone could test who knows about these type of analysis. Nobody was doing that, so we started doing it ourselves. What can you do? And then as a bit of a sideline of our research lines, we started collecting data on the occurrence of female song. So we started with a survey. We said it's underestimated, but there is no systematic survey. Let's do that first. And we did that. And here is a tree that looks like a ball, but why is that so? You all know phylogenetic trees, right? So you have a tree. But if the tree gets very complex, what we tend to do nowadays is just to spiral it up and make it a circle. So it conveniently fits on a slide or in a publication. But that would actually be a real big tree, yeah? So this is here the origin, last common ancestor, and then whenever a line continues up, the new time, current time is the edge of the circle, but you can follow these lines and you see they're branching, then you have a speciation event or a new group is evolving. So this is actually from the middle of the circle to the edge is 16 million years, so it's all very compressed. But when you then look, so what we want to look now is now, and that's here, all the little dots, and every little dot as a species for which we could get positive information on the presence of female song, or they had been studied intensively enough to have a positive negative, so to know for sure they're really not singing, because generations of PhD students had been out or they were kept in a laboratory and so on and so forth. So we have species where females really never sing. But we have a lot of species where they do. And when you now go around the circle, because everybody next to each other is closely related, you see it switches from red to blue to blue to red to blue to red to blue to red, and so on and so forth. So there isn't one corner on the tree where everybody sings and another one where nobody sings. So it's widespread. But it also, to our own surprise, because we thought it was underestimated, it turned out that leaving out the most recent radiation, that's complicated to explain in the break what we mean with that, but all the species that are closer related to the species that were the first songbirds, so to speak, 71% of the species where there were data available had female song. So we were very surprised by that, although we had claimed it was underestimated. It was much more than even we had thought, and we were the specialists. So that was quite a shock. I mean, if you think you're the one who realizes there's more than there is, and then there's more, much more than you thought, it's quite confrontational. And then we went on and contacted some specialists in the evolutionary analysis of ancestral states, so that what you do is you take all the information on all the species that are currently alive on Earth, you look, do they or don't they have a particular trait? In our case, do or don't they have female song? Yeah, so this, and then in which way, it's just a really big puzzle. How could we get to the state now, given that the earliest ancestors did or didn't have song? Yeah? So if we assume they had song, then we should get to the pattern now with very few changes. Then we think it was likely they had song. We run everything again and we assume they didn't have song, and then we see, can we get to this? Because at every branching, the trait has either to be maintained or get lost. And can you imagine how you do with a lot of calculations? Do you get to the pattern now with 500 losses and 2 gains, or 700 losses and 700 gains? I mean, the more changes you have in very closely related species, the less likely this is the right path, the right scenario. And with this type of, you run and run all the permutations, and it kept on, coming up as the most likely scenario that the last common ancestor of the modern bird species must have had song in males and females. Okay, yes, we had said this. It took us about 10 years to get to this point. We had provokingly said this, but again, a shock to our own system that that was the case. Because the whole field had been trying to explain how the sexual dimorphism had evolved, how males had been selected to have ever more song, elaborate song. But if you turn the whole question around and you ask, why did females lose song in the species where they don't sing? It's a complete different research topic. And why did they lose it repeatedly? And conclusion, repeated there, was Darwin wrong? As I said, we study song as a mating signal. Males should be competing and females should choose. No, because we have examples for all that, what Darwin said, and we have examples for song functioning exactly that way, that males use it as a territorial signal to attract females. But we also have other stuff that's not accounted by these ideas. So there is more, and there is also a lot of female song. And this is where we need to ask, when is the female song? When does it get lost? And what are they using song for? Same function as male song, different functions. And why did female song get lost so often in evolutionary time? And I have 5 minutes left. Since we published this paper, we've been encouraging people to collect female song. We do this by Citizen Science Project. We do this by collaborating with the two big databases collecting bird song that were very collaborative. They've changed their forms to submit song because you didn't have to say before whether it was male or female. Now you have to say it's male or female, and most importantly, third category, I don't know. Because this is confronting a lot of people with the fact that they might not know for sure who's singing. Because we have used song to sex birds. We hear birds singing. Ah, it's a bird singing. It must be the male. And what happens? You only document male song. It's completely circular. It really is like that. Okay, and in the database up to that point, lots of species collected. But if you look at which of these are labeled male, which are labeled female, and then you, first of all, you see this big difference. Okay, that could be because there's very little female song. But if you add them up, there's a lot of unlabeled recordings. We don't know. And then there's bigger bias there, because if you then look at all the species where there is no information on whether the song is a male or a female thing, and then you look at those, it's only 27% where we know for sure whether there is or isn't female song. But then when we do know that, there's suddenly a lot of female song. So there's a complete mismatch here in everything. And to round up my last minute, and then also is there really no song in this area, which is exceptionally in having so many species without female song. But even here, where we have the taxonomic groups that show less song, we've simply not seen it. So these are highly intensively studied model system in sexual selection and behavior ecology. The barn swallow, the female, sings a lot. There's a paper out describing the song. The chaffinch, intensive study for song. Here, interestingly, the song only occurs on the Canary Islands, so geographic differences in whether or not there's song in the species. And then the blue-tit, another prime model system in behavior ecology. Female sings a lot too. Here, they look quite the same, the sexes, but here, a trivia reason why was it overlooked. As a standard, blue-tit song is recorded during the dawn chorus, because males then sing for a long time. And that's the only moment of the day where the female doesn't sing. So, but if you look at any other time of the day, you're laughing, right? Should we laugh? Should we cry? It's okay. So my time is up, I think. As a lookout, we are working on what the ecological correlates are, but that's very complicated for non-biologists, so I jump through this. And then I just jump to my take-home message, which I think this time. Female song is widespread and ancestral, so anyone telling you song is a male trait, you now know better. Don't accept that statement. It's really a lesson in how we should be aware of historical and geographical biases in biology, and actually the session before was saying in recording people as well. And be aware that there is a real pronounced diversity in male-female singing strategies. We have everything from males and females singing exactly the same, in the same way, to species where males and females have completely different sound repertoires, different song, no overlap at all, and species where only one sex is singing. And the biggest take-home message is that there's a big why at the end. So why is that so? And that is ongoing work. And thank you for your attention. And I have to thank all these people. And questions is later, right? Yes.